Hi, welcome to ePathshala. I'm Dr. Rakesh Thakur, Associate Professor, Department of Sociology, Postgraduate Government College Sector 11, Chandigarh. Today's module is about agencies of globalization, media. In today's module, I will take you through a journey and will begin that journey by explaining the concept of globalization. Having done that, I would try and examine the relationship between globalization and media. We would like to argue today that how media is an agency of globalization. We would try to examine and understand the interlinkages, interplay and interdynamics between globalization of media in the contemporary world. This module, we would try to understand what are the concept of globalization is all about. Secondly, we will try to examine the relationship between globalization and media. I would also be discussing with you and thus trace the beginning of media as an agency of globalization, and finally we would analyze the globalization of media. Let's begin by understanding globalization. Globalization is a process fueled by and resulting in increasing cross-border flows of goods, services, money, people, information, and culture. Anthony Giddens says, globalization is the intensification of worldwide social relations which link distant localities in such a way that local happenings are shaped by events occurring many miles away and vice versa. Albro says, globalization refers to all those processes by which the people of the world are incorporated into a single world society. There are very many definitions of globalization like any other concept. But as globalization is progressing, there are different interpretations being made by thinkers. Primarily, there are three interpretations of globalization. First wave theories interpret globalization as an economic phenomena having cultural repercussions. Raising a concern, the second wave theorists interpret globalization as a further expansion and domination of powerful economic and military states. Third wave theorists interpret globalization as a process of transformation which is still unfolding. Now, let's try and understand how media is one of the important agencies of globalization. Media are the motor of contemporary globalization. Matos says that mass media plays a key role in globalization as it is through it only that information is exchanged between different cultures and countries. Ranatan says that the relationship between media and globalization can be best explained by using the metaphor of one being a horse and the other a carriage, or one like a computer and the other a screen. Most of the mass media started as a national media. It is important at this juncture to understand how media became an agency of globalization. So we are going to trace this historically. As I already mentioned, most of the mass media started as a national media. McQuail says, and I quote, "The national character of the early mass media was reinforced by the exclusiveness of the language as well as by cultural and political factors." Quote close. To be precise, it was from the mid-19th century that mass media started transcending boundaries, and this transcending became possible with the setting up of well-organized news agencies and use of telegraph. The development of global media can be traced back to the invention of telegraph in 1837, followed by the growth in postal services, telephone and radio communication, and the mass circulation by a press. The newspapers and radio were widely used during Second World War and after, but it was television that has accelerated the process of globalization. The use of electromagnetic waves gave the final push to sharing idea and information globally much more quicker, easier and efficient. Wilbur Schramm, Daniel Lerner and Everett Rogers were among the first communication theorists who contended that media can be used for development purposes. However, a little later, it was found that the role of media in development has undergone a change, as the media was not found to be producing the effects which most of the thinkers thought. They argued that since the advances made in technology or other fields were from the Western country, their point of view has only become global. Setting up of international news agency like Agence France Presse, Reuters, Associated Press to have contributed to giving representation to only one side of the world. This domination of media during 1970s and 1980s by the Western world became an area of serious concern and hence was discussed upon by United Nations Educational, Social and Cultural Organization, popularly known as UNESCO. But still, even after NWICO, the media has not been able to become a global but remain American to a large extent. Even today, media systems which are popular globally are owned by Americans such as CNN and Hollywood. Not only the content and ownership of media was discussed, but even technological aspect of the media has also been reflected upon. McLuhan gave the concept of global village and Manuel Castle about network society. Let's see what did we mean by these in the larger context. It is not just the world that is getting globalized, but media is becoming global too. The era of globalization is also seeing the globalization of media itself to some extent, as emergence of multinational corporation in media has led to concentration of media ownership in few hands. Some of these MNCs owning media are Sony News Corporation, Disney and Time Warner. These corporations, they own print media, broadcast media and online media at the same time, leading to homogenization of content across media. Not only this, most of these MNCs are owned by Western powers. Hence, they just seem to project the Western side of the world. The perspective on any news is thus subjective, favoring the Western viewpoint. There is a kind of bias which is being increased in the media. Let's try and understand what are the alternatives to globalized media. In the late 20th and 21st centuries, many thinkers came up with different concepts to counter the view of globalized media. Some of the theorists have come up with the concept called glocalization, merging the terms glocal and local together, thus glocalization. This concept refers to the programs and formats offered by multinational corporation but tweaked to the local taste and culture to make them desirable by the people of local community. Another concept is that of deterritorialization, which implies a world where geographical territories do not matter any longer, but addresses the concerns and problems of diasporic communities. Let's now try and understand interlinkages between media and other agents of globalization. Mass media has played an important role in accelerating the process of globalization. But the two other factors, money and advertising, which contributed to this process, have worked in close association with media. The terms mass media and media are generally used interchangeably. Mass media is the media which is designed to reach a very large number of people at the same time. But there is a distinction when we talk about media. Media is something which is in between the sender and the receiver, which facilitates the contact between two or more people. So remember, whenever we talk of media, it is between two people, sender and the receiver. So if you are sending a private email or you are sending a message on WhatsApp, you are communicating through a system which will be media. But things like newspaper, television news, radio program, they all come under mass media. So please remember that do not use the term media and mass media together. Mass media is the one which is used to give messages to a very large number of people. And it is this mass media which helps the agency of globalization. For example, a book in a printed form is said to be the first form of mass communication which was used to disseminate ideas or information extended over large areas. The church in Europe had effective means of printing books to transmit its idea to a large number of people. But this form of book was a part of mass communication, different from the concept of mass media. Media thus tend to stress more on the medium or channel rather than the content of the medium. And with the coming of digital technologies, mass media have become more important than mass communication. Mass media helps in making the process of mass communication easier and quicker. Most of the mass media, as I mentioned earlier, started as a national media. If you would look at the Indian freedom struggle, many of the messages which our freedom fighters wanted to give was by using the existing vernacular mass media. The use of electromagnetic waves gave the final push to sharing idea and information globally much more quickly, easily and efficiently. I think this was the turning point from where media started moving from a literate centrist world to one that encompassed each person individually or their interest in the group. The different interpretation which have been made out of the process of globalization, the same are being applied to use of media as an agency of globalization. Whether the media is helping in making the ideas global, or is it that the media is helping only the Western countries to spread their ideas to the rest of the world? This was the subjective bias which I talked about earlier. Is media helping in exchange of ideas and information between different countries, or is it just one-way flow of information from few countries having capital powers to countries which still are struggling with their scarce resources? As a sociologist or social scientist, we must think very, very seriously what exactly is the role of the media. Everything that is coming our way, should it be taken literally, or there should be cross checks, not in the flow of information but in the validity of information? To conclude, media is an important agency of globalization. This needs to be emphasized again and again. Moreover, the technological advancement being made in media technology are further helping in connecting people worldwide, and this results into exchange of ideas and information at a greater pace. Though it has raised some pertinent concerns which needs to be debated and discussed as a student of sociology. With media taking a center stage, many people are arguing that it leads to a diminishing power of state. As I already talked to you during my lecture, the ownership of media is not equally and evenly divided across the first world and the third world. It is primarily in the hands of the Western world. So there is a bias, digital divide. This is something about social stratification. Who, where, and how many people are able to access internet and use it to their advantage. As a student of sociology, we have been hearing about social stratification along different axes. But the new thing which is about this century is digital divide. Who owns the media? Where is the location of the media? How does it view the happening that is going around in the world? Are people able to access internet and use it to their advantage, or they are digitally not connected? These are some serious issues. Undoubtedly, media is a facilitator in information exchange. It leads to dissemination of new information, ideas for the benefit of the society. But there are many concerns which a sociologist should think about. In today's module, we realized that it is not merely globalization which is spreading far and wide, but the media is also becoming globalized. Whether it is the vernacular media, whether it is international media, all are finding platform, and it is the spread of media which is accelerating the spread of globalization. Both are complementary to each other. It is through media we understand the pros and cons of globalization. It is globalization which is taking media all across the world. So both are processes having their own dynamics, their own interplay and own interlinkages. It is important to locate them in their cultural context, but both are separate processes facilitating the growth of each other. Thank you.